All right, let's just jump right in. Think about your computer for a second. When it comes to your operating system, what's more important to you? Is it that it's absolutely rock solid and never crashes, or that it looks beautiful and is just a joy to use? For the longest time, it's felt like you had to pick one. You couldn't have both. But what if you could? That's what we're going to get into today. We're diving into the world of Linux, where that old trade-off is kind of falling apart in some really, really cool ways. So first up, let's talk about Linux's big modern makeover. Look, for years, Linux had this rep, right? Super powerful, sure. But let's be real, it could be a little rough around the edges for most people. Well, I'm here to tell you that idea is completely out of date. And to prove it, check this out. This is a quote from the YouTuber LinuxTex, and it's a bold one. He says, in some ways, this thing is even better than the main Linux Mint. Now, if you know Linux, you know Mint is a huge deal. It's already one of the most polished, user-friendly versions out there. So, better than that? Wow. So what's he talking about? It's called LMDE6. That's short for Linux Mint Debian Edition. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It takes that awesome, modern look and feel from Linux Mint and puts it right on top of Debian. And Debian is legendary for being ridiculously stable. And this is the whole idea right here. You've got two parts coming together. On one side, you have Debian, which is like this unshakable, time-tested foundation. And then you have Linux Mint's Cinnamon Desktop, which is just this beautiful, modern user interface that makes everything so smooth. It's really the best of both worlds, an absolute powerhouse combo. People have called it Debian made vastly simpler. And that's exactly what it is. It takes all the complicated stuff you might worry about with a super stable, professional-grade system and just smooths it all out. You get an experience that just works, right from the first boot. No crazy learning curve. And that's why LinuxTex called it a solid lighthouse. I love that analogy. In this crazy, chaotic tech world where everything changes every 5 minutes, this is something that's just consistent. It's reliable. You're not going to get an update that completely changes how you use your computer. It just works. Okay, so let's recap. We've got a beautiful OS. It's super stable, it's easy to use. It sounds a little too good to be true, right? So what's the catch? Well, there is one, and it's a big one. It's something that almost every new user completely overlooks. And that brings us to the unlocked default settings. See, the problem is that when you install a fresh copy of Linux, it isn't set up to be a fortress from the get-go. It's more like a brand new house where all the doors and windows are left wide open. Don't just take my word for it. This quote from a big security hardening guide on GitHub just puts it out there plain and simple. Your fresh Linux install isn't secure. It's blunt, yeah, but it's the absolute truth. So why would they do that? Well, it's all about making things easy for you at the start. They want to make sure all your hardware works, everything is compatible. They prioritize convenience. And that's part of the Linux philosophy, right? Freedom and choice. But the flip side is, that means the responsibility to actually lock the system down, well, that's on you. And most people just don't. And look, this isn't just about your personal laptop. Think about the internet. Linux powers a huge chunk of it. We're talking a 20% market share for servers, and that's only going up. So with that kind of popularity, you better believe it's a massive target for attackers. I mean, it's almost instant. The moment a new Linux server connects to the internet, bam, it's getting scanned. Automated scripts, bots, they are constantly probing, looking for those default settings, for weak passwords, for any little crack they can get into. It's a relentless 24/7 thing. Okay, so that sounds pretty scary. But here's the good news, the really good news. You do not need to be some cybersecurity genius to fix this. Seriously. You can build yourself a solid security fortress in like 5 minutes, just by hitting the most important weak spots. So let's break it down. I like to call this the critical trio. Just 3 simple steps. If you do these 3 things, you're going to stop almost all of those automated attacks cold. It's simple. Lock the door, build the walls, and set the guards. First things first, lock the front door. We're talking about SSH access, how you connect to the machine remotely. The absolute #1 thing to do is turn off password logins and use secure SSH keys instead. That one move alone makes it basically impossible for bots to guess your password, because there is no password to guess. And while you're at it, you definitely want to stop the super powerful root user from logging in directly. All right, step 2, build the walls. This means turning on the firewall. Most Linux versions have one, but surprise, surprise, it's usually off by default. The trick is simple. Set it to block everything coming in by default. Then you poke tiny little holes in the wall just for the things you actually need, like SSH. If you don't need a service, its door stays shut. Simple. And finally, step 3, set the guards. This just means turning on automatic security updates. Most of the hacks you hear about exploit vulnerabilities that, well, they've already been fixed. By turning on auto updates, you make sure you get those fixes as soon as they're out. It's a total set it and forget it way to stay protected from all the latest known threats. So once you've got that critical trio down, you're in a great spot. But if you want to level up your game, there are always more layers of defense you can add. Let's take a quick peek at what's next on the path to becoming a security pro. You've got stuff like Fail2Ban, which is like a bouncer for your server. It automatically blocks anyone who keeps trying to guess your password. Then there's tools like AppArmor or SE Linux, which basically put your apps on a leash. So even if one gets compromised, it can't do much damage. And of course, audit logging, which is like having security cameras everywhere recording everything that happens, so you can go back and see exactly what went down if something bad ever does happen. Okay, so let's bring this all back to the beginning. We started with this beautiful, modern operating system. Now we've added these layers of security. So what happens when you put those two things together? You get what we were promised at the start. It's not just a pretty face on a stable foundation anymore. It's an elegant, powerful, and genuinely reliable system that puts you in the driver's seat. And you realize that security isn't some chore that limits you, it's the very thing that gives you that total control. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Linux gives you all this amazing freedom, right? But with that freedom comes a bit of responsibility. So I want to ask you, is this balance, having the total power to build your perfect setup, but also having the duty to protect it, is that what the future of computing is all about? It's definitely something to think about.